have necessarily altered the facade. In fact, an interesting thing is we don't technically own the facade. The facade was deeded to Historic Milwaukee back in the 80s, and that was part of this tax exchange kind of deal that they made. And it's a good thing. I mean, it's not like they come over and like wash it or clean it or anything like that. Like, the only thing that does is stop some idiot from coming in here and ever just tearing the building down.
So they kind of make it like into a landmark thing, and that's
right.
something.
So this corporation, Historic Milwaukee, that's out to preserve everything historic about Milwaukee, owns it.
Yeah.
And they're never going to let anyone tear it down.
Yeah.
So that's like a little roadblock, which is a good roadblock, to put in there for it. But yeah, so making the building, if we weren't going for historic tax credits, short of tearing it down, because then Historic Milwaukee would have stepped in and did something, we could have did whatever we wanted inside, tore the plaster off, did all that, and they would have said, well, it's your money, do what you want to do. But luckily, we kind of followed along with that too. I mean, it's the right thing to do for the building.
Yeah.
Were there a lot of obstacles, like design-wise, as far as making it work as a dental clinic?
Yeah, I mean, a few of the things are really, there's so much underfloor plumbing, in a dental office, and this is a wood joist building, so, running stuff, normally if we're building a new one and we're on grade with a slab, you can run all your pipes underneath, and you got a concrete slab, and you can go wherever you want to go. So here it made it a little tougher, just because you're trying not to get too far below the structure, and you can't just chop out a bunch of joists and run a pipe this way. You got to kind of work out where that all goes. So yeah, getting the mechanical in. Some of the nuances too, like one of the things you can't do is get within 5 feet of an historic window if you're going to put something below the head of the window. So what they want to see is all the historic ceiling heights next to the window. So everywhere that you're on a facade, at least on the major facades like the cast iron and even on the Sally facade, like if you were on the street, you'd look up and you'd see historic ceiling heights, from there, and that's a pretty good idea, rather than having low ceilings or softening across and doing stuff from there. So you kind of had to plan that out pretty well too, make sure and then really, because you got nothing next to the window, so for 5 feet you can't run any ductwork or piping or anything, and it's all got to be back here, and you got to route that through. From a dental office layout standpoint, you'll see 2 different kind of methods of laying out here. So on the 3rd floor, where we're using the historic windows are so big, but they're not big enough like you could put one in a room. Like one window is too small and 2 windows is almost too big, but you can't split a window either. So we've got some operatories on that side. They're in some pretty generous rooms that you'd never do if you were building a new one, because they're incorporating 2 windows. On the mezzanine, where there's no windows, it's kind of cool because the column spacing that was in here, there's a beam right where this column is. There's a beam, that runs east-west, and then a series of columns. So I was able to use those columns into the kind of the layout of the rooms, and it lays out a little more like a real dentist office would, as opposed to these. So, I mean, those are the two things really about that. You've also got challenges of having a dental office on multiple floors, which normally, it's kind of spread out on one floor. Here, our mechanical systems for vacuum and compressed air and everything are in the basement. And we're trying to get compressed air and nitrous oxide and all this stuff up to 3 and vent things out the roof. And in a storage building, you can't just go out the sidewalls. With stuff too. It's got to all go through the roof, and you don't want to see it. And even here, we're right on the lot line, which is also kind of an interesting thing with the city, right? This building is built not only right to the lot line on all 4 sides, it actually encroaches on the 2 on Water and Wisconsin. All that cool stuff is really technically hanging over the lot line. So they had this special use tax that I think that's also part of why some of the detail disappeared over the years, that the owner said, I'm not paying that. I mean, they want $4,500 a year for the encroachment onto the city easement. So we looked at it as like, really? Do you want us to like pull all the stuff off the building so we
Yeah.
don't have to pay it? I said, well, no, we don't want you to do this. Okay, well, maybe you got to get rid of this. So it went through Common Council, and I think they're done voting on it now, but they were gonna like give us a break and not charge us $4,500. We're like, we put it back to the way it was historically,
Yeah.
and now we're gonna get penalized to the tune of $4,500 a year because it hangs out over the sidewalk. But you know, so that's another thing is